welcome back to the channel. A very warm welcomes to you all. Today, something a little different. So today I'm going to do my product review of the Omanik Factory Quantum frames. So I am a two-handed stitcher. I taught myself to stitch back in 2014 and it is the only way that I really know how to stitch. As a two-handed stitcher, I have to have an array of accessories, let's say, to make it so that I can do my stitching and enjoy the process. So as a two-handed stitcher, I need to have accessories to help me do the stitching. So things like frames for when I'm stitching at home, frames for stitching on the go, stands for stitching at home, stands for stitching on the go, and at retreats, most importantly, and basically an arsenal of accessories. And for me personally, I need all this to make my stitching easier and more enjoyable. So since I started this channel back in 2015, yeah, wow, 7 years. 7 years we've been here. I have always used Needle Needs Manelium frames. And over this time, I have acquired a number of different sets and different sizes of the Manelium frame. Now, I have always been aware of the Omanik Factory Quantum frames. I was made aware of them originally back in 2015 at my very first ever retreat. And I rocked up with my Manelium frames and 𝙁𝙖𝙘𝙩𝙪𝙢 stitches here on Flosstube. She rocked up with the Quantum frames. So whilst we was there, when we, you look at what other people's frames are and what accessories they're using, it's a thing. It's a thing we do. When you had them sort of side by side, the Manelium frame and the Quantum frame did look very, very similar as far as style and how you use them. So over the years, I have been curious about the Omanik Quantum frames, but for me personally, I was like, well, why would I need them? I use the Manelium frames. Needle Needs is based in the UK. I'm based in the UK. Why would I go anywhere else to look for frames? But now with extremely long lead times and not so great customer services at Needle Needs, I decided I needed to try the Quantum frames from Omanik Factory in Estonia. So back in May of this year, I decided to have a look at the Omanik Factory Quantum frame. So without a project in mind, I went onto the Omanik website, had a little look at their frames, and like I say, I wasn't looking for a particular project. So I decided to go with some horizontal bars that they weren't huge, but they weren't small. They were basically a medium-sized bar that a number of different projects that I have on the go would work with. So I decided to order the QL50 horizontal bars, and along with that, the sidebars, I went with the QH20s. Ordering was a total breeze. Absolutely fabulous, total breeze. It was ordered and shipped in less than 3 weeks, which for me, given that I would wait, let's just say excessively longer than 3 weeks normally to get a Manelium frame. So my first impressions of the frame when it turned up, packaging was fine, frames were fine, everything looked very similar to what I'm used to working with. I'm very happy with the frames. They're made out of a lovely beech wood. So all in all, very happy. As September was my birthday month, I decided that I would treat myself to another Quantum frame. This time I had a project in mind. So the project in mind was my chatelaine, evening in the park. So this time I needed something that had bigger horizontal bars, much bigger than the ones that I got before. But this time I decided I would try the sidebars with the side stretchers. So because this new looking sidebar and side stretcher, and I wasn't 100% sure or confident when I was looking on the website as to what I really needed for the project. So I did nothing less than reach out to the Omanik Factory to basically find out from them if I was ordering the right thing for the job. I had the pleasure of connecting with Sophia. She is a representative of the Omanik Factory, and although she works for Omanik, I was really quite surprised when I found out that she was actually a fellow stitcher. She was fabulous, super helpful. She gave me all of the guidance and the advice about the horizontal bars, about the sidebars, with the stretchers. And then basically when I explained to her the size of the project, I gave her the dimensions of the fabric. I sort of told her how deep I like to stitch. You know, do I like to look at a lot of what I've already stitched, or am I not bothered? I'm quite happy to be covered over. So she then gave me her recommendations of what horizontal bars I should look to purchase and what sidebars. She couldn't have been more helpful. In fact, she asked me questions about, you know, do you want it to do this, or do you want it to do that, or do you do it like this, or do you do it? I hadn't even thought of any of those questions, in all fairness. I was like, well, it's a frame, right? It's a scroll bar. Talk about opened one's mind. She definitely opened my mind when I'm now looking at ordering my frames. Probably those questions will now start actually filtering into this brain rather than me just going willy-nilly off onto the website. So I had my correspondence with Sophia on the 9th of September. I placed the order on the 13th of September and the shipment arrived here on the 30th of September. So in 17 days from ordering to arrival here in the UK from Estonia, I was like, wow, now that is service. So I guess now you're wondering why I've not mentioned the Omanik Factory Quantum frames before now, given that I purchased one back in May and the new one, my new beastie, in September. Well, I on purposely spent a few months playing with my new toys because I wanted to be able to give you an honest review of the quantum frames. And before I can actually recommend to anyone anything that I use, I need to make sure that I am giving you a good recommendation. If it's something I like, then I'm happy to share with people that I like it. But if it's not something that I like, then it's not something that I would necessarily recommend to anybody else. But I have to say, I am over the moon with my new frames. So when we go to these companies and we order frames, accessories, stands, all that jazz, all that stuff that we love, the reality is that sometimes when we get things, we need a bit of aftercare. Me personally, I needed aftercare. Not so much for my order in May, but definitely for my order in September. So given that this was a new little beastie, so this is the sidebars with the side stretchers attached. When they arrived, I was like, oh, they look fabulous, and I think I've got an idea how they go, but I wasn't 100% sure that I was putting it together correctly and making sure that I was setting up the frame the way that it's supposed to be set up. So needless to say, I needed to reach out again to Sophia. So there are two ways that you can contact them. The first way is that on the website, under Contact Us, there is a form that you can fill out. You put your details in. There's a little space there for messages, so you can put a message in there to sort of say, you know, I need some assistance or I need some help. Alternatively, you can send them an email at orders@omanikfactory.com. What I loved about the Omanik Factory is that not only were they very, very helpful in the placing of the order, and the lead time was fabulous. In fact, that was spectacular. But also the aftercare. So, you know, when your product arrives, if there's something that you're not sure of, they're very willing and very happy to give you an extra bit of guidance and advice of how to set it all up if you're not sure. So I have to say, I am, more than excited about my frames. And mostly, I have to say, I am gloriously over the moon with my new sidebars with the side stretchers. They are a game changer. Total game changer. So now that I've given you a little overview of my initial experience and thoughts and views, let me swivel the camera around, change the angle, and show you the quantum frames up close and personal. So here we are in the living room with the frames. Let's show you these frames. So the first frame that I purchased back in May of this year was this one. And this is the smaller of the two. So you've got your horizontal bars and then you've got your side bars. So the size of these ones, or the size of this frame that I've got here, this is the QL50 bars, which is your horizontal bars, top and bottom, with the QH20 side bars on these bits. All of the wood is made from beech wood, so it's beautiful wood, bit of brand in there. But then you can see up here, you've got like a screw section with a, I don't even know what we call that, a turny thing. Let's call it a turny thing, shall we? Let's make it technical. So these are actually very, very easy to use. So if you haven't actually ever used one of these frames, let me show you. So the top and bottom bars, the horizontal bars, have got like a recess in them. And then inside that recess, there's a dowel that you can slide in and out. So you literally lay your project, well, so you'd lay your bars on the table or on a flat surface. You put your fabric over the top, using either a credit card or a piece of card. I've actually got a designated tool that I use that will push the fabric into the recess. Once you've got it in and it's nice and straight, you've evened it all up, top and bottom, I then push the dowel through, which is what catches and holds that fabric inside that recess. And then as you turn these over, the fabric comes round, and that's actually what catches the fabric inside. So once you've got your project loaded on your frame and you've put your side stretchers in, it will sort of look like this. And as you can see, the project is very, 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 very loose and floppy on there. So to get the tension, literally all you do is you push these sections up with your fingers, which is what will take up the slack. And at that point, I personally just use my thumb like so. Now that's still not drum tight, that's still not got that much tension in the fabric. That's basically just to take up the slack. So then, once you get it to there, then you start turning. So by pushing these sections up, this is then what's going to create the tension in your fabric. So, and you can see now, it even makes like a drum noise, she said. So that is perfect tension for my stitching now. Now, not everyone likes lots of tension, and that's the beauty about these scroll bars. So if you like something that's got really good tension, you just tighten it. If you like something that's got less tension, you just loosen it. I personally like a good amount of tension, especially on full coverages, especially on things like this where there's no beads, there's nothing to worry about getting squashed. Yeah, I do crank it up, I'll be honest. Now, I don't leave my projects on full tension like this when I'm not working on it. So when I'm not working on it, I relax off my tension, she says. Bit squeaky there. So I don't take off the tension so that the sidebars fall out, because that can happen. That does happen. It happens to me all the time. You don't need to give it that much slack. But then what I do is I just basically check to make sure that the bits that are down here that are not causing too much tension on these either. And then that is how I leave mine. So you can see it's all nice and floppy. I leave mine overnight, and when I'm not stitching on it, that's how I leave it. So as this was the frame that I first ordered in May, on the website, this was the option. So this is what I chose. It resembles very much what I'm used to stitching on. However, when I went back onto the website in September, these side stretchers have been discontinued. So the way these side stretchers work are that in these horizontal bars, there are holes, top and bottom, on both this horizontal bar and this horizontal bar. The reason the holes are in there is so that these particular side stretchers have like a dowel that goes in, and then the same thing happens at the top. That's how you connect the horizontal bars to the side bars. However, they have discontinued this sidebar. They now do a sidebar that actually connects to these horizontal bars in a different way. So these sidebars are not available, but they do have the alternative sidebars. So this frame particularly is great for what I call my smaller projects. You know, they're not that big. And because they're not that big, I don't really need to worry too much about the tensions on the sides. So for me, for the smaller projects, I am quite happy to have just the sidebars with the horizontal bars. So now for the big frame. This one is much bigger because it's accommodating a much bigger project. So here it is. And it looks totally different. So here we go. So this is the frame that I ordered in September of this year. So this is the newer one. And like I was saying to you, this one is different in the respect that it has these side stretchers attached to the sidebars. Now, they do sidebars without the side stretchers. But because this project is particularly big, she says, so big that I can't even squeeze around it, you will see on here, this bit looks very similar to what you saw before, as does the horizontal bars. The change in the sidebars, so where I was saying to you that they've discontinued the other bars, this is the new sidebar. What size is this, she says. So my horizontal bars are the QL70s, and my side stretchers, or my sidebars with side stretchers connected, are QH30s. So the QH30s basically means I have more depth this way. Obviously the horizontal bars make total sense. The smaller the number, the shorter the bar. On the side stretchers, the same sort of applies. So the last set that I showed you on the sidebars, they were QH20, so therefore they were shorter. So the wooden section is shorter. So the amount of stitching that you have available within that area will be less than, say, the QH30s. But I've got to say, I absolutely love these frames. Absolutely love them. Now, as you can see, like I said, the game changer for me is this section here. So these are additional parts. So you can just buy just a side stretcher that resembles more like the frame that I just showed you. This one, however, has a side stretcher that is actually connected to it. So let me spin this around. So this is how it looks on the back. So as you can see, I haven't got any tension on it at the moment, but basically it's a piece of wood. It's got a metal section here with 3 wing nuts that hold it in place. There's a metal rod inside of this that you actually place over your fabric so that your fabric has got something that it sits against. And then on the front, she says, oh, spinning it round. Whew, this is harder than it looks. On the front, you can see the wood at the front. So, the way this works is very, very similar to how the other one works. The remodeling of these sidebars was actually really quite genius, because on the old style sidebars, when you needed to turn the scroll to move your project up or down within the area for you to stitch on, you had to do a full turn because there was only a hole at one side of this horizontal bar and then again on the other side. So you had to do a full turn. However, with this new side stretcher, you don't need to do that. You can do like something that's in the middle. You're not governed by it. And they literally just slide in and out. It's so easy. Look at that. It just comes right out. And then you put it back in. Now, it's got a stopper on the end so that once you've put it in, it goes up against it. If you've got that turned around the wrong way, it won't go in. So you know you've got it right. It's not, even for me, this was like, this is not rocket science. So literally, horizontal bar just slots into this end. Now it's still pretty flexible and flimsy at this point until you put the tension on. When you put the tension on, then it doesn't move around at all. But the bit I like about this particular fixing is that it gives you more flexibility and more versatility about how much you scroll, if you like, your project. So they've definitely, it's definitely obviously been something that they've really, really thought about. It also, it can be a bit fiddly sometimes, getting the slots in the holes of the bars. So yeah, taking that out of the equation definitely makes this a much nicer experience. So, tension-wise, it works exactly the same. Push it up with your fingers. She says this one's a bit heavier, so we'll do one side at a time. And then off you go. Once you get it to a certain level, and you can tension to your heart's content. Now, like I say, I like mine quite tight, but this one is slightly different because it's got the beads on it. So having the beads on it, I'm a little bit more careful about how much tension I put. I mean, I still put a lot of tension on there. This is my felt that I roll up into this bit, into this section, so that none of the beads can be squashed. But you can see, it's great. However, you can also see that this bit's not so great. And that's because it's such a big project in this area that although I've got it straight on the bars, because it is such a big project, I find that the sides they're not as, the tension is not as good as it is in the middle. This is where the bad boy side stretchers come into play. So obviously it's already fixed to it, I just haven't tensioned it. So then to tension these, screw the wing nuts, which is what causes the tension. That's one side. I'm always mindful that I don't over tension on one side, because you don't want it so that it distorts your fabric. You want it so that it's sort of tensioned equally on both sides. But you can see as soon as you start sort of feeling on the fabric when you've got it right. I suppose it's like tuning a drum. I'm tuning the drum, people. There we go. So now I've got tension in the middle. I've got tension at both sides. And it is glorious to stitch with tension equally across the project rather than just in the middle or up high or down low. It's lovely to have this bit. It's always worried me as well that when you're working on these big projects where you've got like a lot of fabric, that by constantly keep going and tensioning the top and the bottom of it, it's whether it's actually going to distort the fabric. By having the tension that stretches these side sections, makes it so that as much as I'm stretching it up and down, I'm also stretching it outwards, therefore less likely to distort any of the actual stitching. But I have to say, this frame for me has been a total game changer. A total game changer. I love this. Like I say, on their website, when you go on the website, you will see that they have two different types of horizontal bars and one type of sidebar that is just standard, and you will also have another sidebar which has got the side stretchers on it. Now, just for any of you that might be heading on over to Omanik Factory to go and look at these quantum frames, I'll put a link in the description box below. If you use that link and you go through to their website, what you will notice is that when you're looking at the horizontal bars, so when you're on the website and you're looking at these horizontal bars, these are your QL rods, is what they word them as. So the QL rods, there's two different types, but yet they seem the same. They're not the same. So currently on the website it says QL rods, and if you read the description box, it will say that there are one set that have got with holes and one set without holes. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what difference does it make whether it's got holes or not? Because at first I was confused, but it makes total sense. Given that they have now remodeled their side stretchers, there is no need to be making these horizontal bars with holes in them. So therefore, they're offering a horizontal bar without holes. So the horizontal bar without holes will fit the side stretchers and the sidebars. The horizontal bars that say they have holes in them, again, are completely compatible with this sidebar. So it doesn't make any difference whether you go with the one with holes or the one without holes. If this is your first frame and you haven't got any of the old existing side stretchers, and when I'm talking about the old existing side stretchers, I'm talking about these ones. These are the ones that require the hole in the horizontal bar, but they don't do these ones anymore. So because they don't do these ones anymore, if you don't already have the quantum frame original sidebars, you don't need to have the horizontal bars with the holes in them. If you ordered these horizontal bars without the holes, but you had these sidebars, the original sidebars, like I say, you would have already had to have had them because they're already not on the website. If you already had those, these horizontal bars will not work with your old side stretchers because there's nothing to go into because there's no hole there. Now, from what I can gather, I think at some point throughout the winter this year, and I say the winter, what that means I do not know. I would say any time between now and March. So anywhere between now and March, those horizontal bars with the holes in will be discontinued. So for me currently, given that I've always used the scroll bars, I use my scroll bars on my Needle Needs floor stand, which is fine, but I have to be honest. I am so impressed with these frames that, you know, when you look at the other products that are on the site, I am rather intrigued over some of the stands. They've got a floor stand, they've got a desk stand. Yeah, I personally can see myself spending a bit more money. But for now both of these frames work perfectly on my stand. I absolutely love them. I mean, this one is just like your atypical, exactly what I'm used to. But in all fairness, this one has blown my mind. I absolutely love it when I pull this out and I get to stitch on this, purely because it's now got its side stretchers on. You never know, I might actually get Evening in the Park done faster now that I've got this lovely new setup. If you like the look of the Omanik Quantum frames, they are also on social media. They've got an Instagram account, they've got a Facebook account, they're on YouTube. I'll put the links here for you and in the description box below. So wrap up time, what can I say? I absolutely love my frames, especially my frames with the side stretchers. It's a game changer. I personally am so happy with my quantum frames that I think this will be my new go-to frame. And when it comes to recommendations, I will have no hesitations to say, go to Omanik Factory. The Quantum frames, yeah, they're amazing. I love, love, love. The wrap up of this is my new best favourite thing are my Quantum frames. I probably will not shop anywhere else for my frames going forwards. And like I say, I'm intrigued to find out a bit more about some of their other products after being on their website. Yeah, I need to stop looking at their website. So I hope you like the product review. I love the product, so of course I'll review it. I've given you my honest opinion, my honest feedback. There's not very many places in the world where you can get good lead time, good customer service, value for money. Yeah, what's not to like about all of that? So now that I have these frames, but I also have my Manelium frames, my plan is to do a video where I'm going to do a comparison, so I can show a comparison between the Needle Needs Manelium frame and the equivalent Quantum frame. So that will be coming up soon. So until next time, people, bye bye for now.